Hi, everyone. I'm Ann Lapel, and I am chair of the Montclair Gateway to Aging in Place. And the acronym spells the GAP, okay? Gateway to Aging in Place. We identify the gaps with other organizations in the town that affect seniors specifically. And one of them is emergencies, climate emergencies, road emergencies, water emergencies. We've all lived through it. So how does that information get communicated to you? What do you do in an emergency? Well, today we have the Montclair Ambulance Unit, Michael Craig, and MGAP getting together with the mill to bring you some very important information, to arm you with information on how to deal with it. But more than that, after this presentation, you're all invited to work with MGAP on learning to use digital tools to get information about emergency messaging. You know, sometimes it is very hard to trust what's coming through the internet, through your phones, through email. We want to empower you so that next time there's an emergency, you know what's real, you know what to do, and you know where to go. So, with that, we're going to first hear from Michael Craig from the ambulance unit, and then you'll hear from someone from MGAP about the next stage of this project.
Thank you very much. My name is Deputy Chief Mike Craig. I've been with the Montclair Ambulance Unit since 2001. 2002 is when I first started here. The program that we're going to be going over today is Montclair Be Ready. The Be Ready program was developed from FEMA to help citizens better prepare for different types of disasters. We started this program shortly after Hurricane Sandy, mainly because of the outreach that we saw, as previously stated, the gap that we saw. We went to a lot of residents for welfare checks, people that were not prepared for that type of disaster. Hurricane Sandy was an extreme example, but this is to help you better be prepared. First, a little bit about us, if you're not familiar with us. We are a career agency. We are a 501c3 non-for-profit. We are actually not a department of the town. Last year, we responded to 4,393 calls. This year, we're expected to go over 5,000. Year to date, we've taught over 400 people CPR, Stop the Bleed, Narcan training, all through our community education program. We are primarily funded through grants and donations and medical billing. Preparedness barriers is the first part. Is we're breaking down one of those barriers by education. The first step is to learn what we need to do. Every year, September is National Preparedness Month, where as emergency services, we're supposed to go out there and help you better be prepared for disasters. So if a disaster happens, you don't actually have to call the ambulance, the fire department. You're actually prepped for it, and you can survive through the disaster. The National Preparedness Community, which we're going to be going over, and basic preparedness steps. Again, the goal of national preparedness is to increase the overall knowledge and numbers of individuals that are prepared. This is the first step. We're going to give you a lot of resources. At the end, we have some handouts that we can give you, some checkoff sheets, how you can be better prepared at home. And we're going to give you a lot of links. The sign-in sheet that we're handing out right now, we ask for your email. If you would like, we can attach most of these documents that we have as a PDF and email them to you. We only printed out a limited amount because we didn't want to kill a forest because we weren't sure exactly how many people were coming today. Preparedness steps. Stay informed of the types of emergencies that can occur in your area. California has earthquakes. We have hurricanes and bad winter storms. I would say over the last 5, 10 years, some of that has drastically changed. And we're going to teach you how to build a kit and get involved. All the studies by the Federal Emergency Management Association and disasters ask individuals to be prepared for a minimum of 3 days. Because if a true catastrophic disaster happens, such as Hurricane Katrina, wildfires, hurricanes, tornadoes, it may take up to 3 days for the federal government to actually be able to get there and respond. I'm going to be honest, I would prepare for a week because it's the federal government. Some things take a little bit more time. I'm just being bluntly honest. I've worked many disasters nationally and locally, and we may request assistance. It may be longer than 3 days before you get it. The documentation says have a minimum of 3 days supply ready for you. I always try to have a week. Be self-resilient. Know your disasters that are in your area. Know where your gas shutoff is to your house if you don't know. You can ask the fire department to come, and they'll be happy to show you. If you're not affected by the disaster, but your neighbor is, they don't have power, maybe they can come over to your house and keep warm. Little things like that make a big difference. Types of hazards in your community. What type of disasters have happened in Montclair? Anybody? Hurricanes, flooding. What else? Power outages. Water main breaks, very good. Yes, now earthquakes. Just when I thought, oh good, this slide is done and it's good, and all of a sudden I'm sitting at home with my daughter, and all of a sudden like, uh-oh, that wasn't my daughter farting, that was an earthquake. There's a lot of resources out there. Ready.gov has everything that you need. If you have somebody that's primary language is not English, they have it in, I think, over 27 different languages, written as well as videos. They also have stuff for visually impaired people that they can provide you for free. Hurricane Sandy was one of the bigger ones. Power outages, flooding, Hurricane Floyd. When we prepared for the Hurricane Sandy, we were prepped for flooding. What's the one thing Montclair didn't get during Hurricane Sandy? Flooding. What we got was a large number of power outages, trees down, and then 3 days later we got a snowstorm, which I never would connect the two till that day. These are just some of the pictures. What was one of the results of Hurricane Sandy a lot of the younger generation were not used to? No cell service. What else? Anybody recognize, I should have gotten a better picture, what this long line was for? What? Not water. It was for gas. Because all the road closures and everything else, all the gas stations started to lose gas. And they went to odd and even license plates. Some of you may remember that. The younger generation was completely awestruck by that. People didn't have enough of gas. Winter storms, power outages, unable to travel, heating. Are you prepared for your pets? Do you have a little cat or dog at home? Do you have enough of canned dog food or dry food? If it snows so much you can't get out the back door, do you have wee-wee pads for your pet to go in the basement or in a corner of the house? Some of these things you don't think of until the actual disaster happens. The elderly. Some people are not as mobile as others. If you know a hurricane's coming or a bad snowstorm, check on your elderly neighbor. Say, hey, I'm going to the store. Do you want me to pick you up a couple extra cans of food or some chips or whatever? During Hurricane Sandy, one of the responses that we had, a daughter called from South Carolina asking, I haven't heard from my parents in 3 or 4 days. We sent one of our crews over got to the house with Montclair police. We ended up breaking into the house. Their parents were fine. We found them upstairs underneath every blanket that they owned because there was no power to the house, so they had no heat. And their cell phones died a day and a half ago, and the husband wanted to go to try to get, plug in the charger, but a tree fell in front of his yard. We were lucky enough to get them, bring them to a neighbor's house, have them talk to their daughter, but it worked out really, really well. And they started by that point, they started running out of food because they thought, oh, once a storm happens, I'll just go in the car and just drive down to the Stop and Shop. Heat waves. This is becoming a little bit more and more prevalent. What are the results of a heat wave? What usually ends up happening if it's a prolonged heat wave? Sorry? Person becomes unconscious, they get overheated. Power outages. The demand of electricity is growing, and the amount of power that people are requiring, especially during heat waves, are becoming higher. So having that backup generator at your house, if you have one, that's great, or having a place that you can go to. I know during certain heat waves, the Montclair Township sends out the alerts through the Montclair alert system for the cooling centers, which is usually the public libraries, town halls, things of that nature. If you've gone to the Montclair Township website, there's a site for Montclair alerts that you can sign up for, and they will send you text messages as well as email alerts, and they usually post it on the website. Flooding. Flooding has been drastically changing this area, mainly because of a lot of development. So there's not a lot of places for the water to go anymore. Places that used to never flood now do flood. I know during the last storm, for the first time, I saw almost like a foot and a half of flooding on Church Street, which I never saw before. Usually it's by the Pine Brook, by Pine Street, things of that area. Flood maps are available through FEMA if you don't know where they are. They are updated every 10 years, and New Jersey and Essex counties are being updated in the next few years. But know your surroundings. This is the Watchung Plaza underneath the train trestle, which floods every single time. And almost guaranteed there's going to be somebody that ends up driving into it. If you're driving while we're getting a rainstorm and you see puddles, do not, if you think, oh, I can drive through that, if you actually have that thought, I can drive through that, don't. Turn around, don't drown. If you can't get to your house, try to find a neighbor's house, a family member's house that you can drive to safely. It is not worth the risk of people drowning. Air quality. Everybody remember a few years ago when the sky turned red from the California forest fires? Just like you, we were caught a little bit off guard by that because we weren't expecting it. It's something I never thought we would have to deal with in Montclair is a forest fire, especially from Canada. For the Montclair Ambulance Unit, we were able to have enough of preparedness equipment to respond in that. But in the event that happens again, does your building know how to shut off its air that sucks in from the outside so the smoke doesn't come in? Do you know to, during extreme situations like that, turn off your air conditioner because that's drawing in all the smoke from that forest fire? Things like that is really important information to know. Close your windows. Even though you may like the breeze, if there's a heat or air quality alert, you really don't want those particles to come in and bothering you, especially if you have any type of respiratory conditions. Earthquakes. One thing I never thought I would have to go over this until 2 years ago. They come usually with no warning, especially in this area. The Northeast is not usually prone for earthquakes, but we've been hit by a few recently. The big one in Virginia, and then now we've had a number of ones in New Jersey. We're still not considered an earthquake-prone area yet. We should not experience as much earthquake activity as Southern California or other states. That being said, it's not a bad idea to be a little bit more informed. If the earth starts shaking again, you're going to stop, drop, and hold on. That's the basic way. The covers over the little pamphlet I have over here is from the Great American Shakeout, which is a program run through FEMA and the USGS to help people better prepare for earthquakes. You basically want to stop what you're doing, get to the lowest point, and then cover yourself. If you can get underneath the table, great. If you can get into a doorway, even better. Evacuation routes. Know your evacuation routes. This is a national made program, so this is made for certain states like Florida that have dedicated routes for evacuation. The evacuation routes that Essex County OEM have developed, you may have seen them on the signs, and some of them may be confusing because it looks like they're pointing to each other. They're actually designed for an evacuation to direct you to all the major roadways, like 280, the Parkway, those types of areas. And if the trigger was pulled where we had to evacuate, a lot of messaging would come out, as well as road closures and detour signs. It's not just look for the blue sign on the street light. The county as well has an emergency alert system that you can sign up for. They can send out messages as well. Do not rely on your cell phone for maps. I don't think I have to tell this generation this, but during Hurricane Sandy, one of the bigger issues was a lot of the responders were trying to use their cell phone to get from point A to point B, and there was no cell phone service at all. Even with emergency cell phone service, that draws in a lot of information, and sometimes you won't be able to get it. You have to pull out a paper map. Some people may remember the big Hagstrom's maps. I still have them in the back of my car. I taught my wife how to use it, and now she thinks it's a game when we drive. Like, I know what street's coming up. Having paper maps make a really, really big difference. In every one of our ambulance, above the visor, there is still a paper map of Montclair. And it's really, really important when your cell phone service goes down. And your cell phone service may go down, not necessarily for a hurricane or a disaster. What else could it go down for? Battery? I'm sorry. Do you have a question? I'm just about to get to that. She's getting ahead of me. Yeah, the other thing that may affect you is cyber attacks. We've all heard hospitals being affected by cyber attacks. Other countries have experienced where they've had a nationwide cell phone outage. If you don't have your cell phone, no cell phone outage, can't use your Google Maps to figure out where to go to point A to point B, or Apple Maps or whatever service you use. Disasters can happen at any time and anywhere. You want to be prepared. You want to build a kit. Your kit should come with whatever you believe you need and know how to use. We have checkoff sheets that tell you certain things we suggest to go in it, as well as FEMA. But that's the link, and we can email that out to you as well. At a minimum, you want 1 gallon of water per person.
8 bottles of water per person.
Yes. Me personally, I have a duffel bag in the back of my closet at home that, now that I say that, I have to update it because I have a 1-year-old at home that I haven't added closer to her. But I I have one kid at home, one in my personal car, one in my wife's car, and like a little backpack that I carry with me at all times. That way, if I'm out and a disaster happens, I have some type of emergency supplies. Food, at least 3 days supply of non-perishable food. Protein bars are usually good. Anything that has like a long expiration date. You don't want anything like apples or anything that can
What's the shelf life on bottled water? Not just for like cleanliness, but also leakage. Doesn't it leak after a while?
It does. Most bottled water, depending on the brand, can go from a year to a year and a half. So in September, National Preparedness Month, just like in October, when you check your smoke detectors, you want to check your emergency preparedness kit. Maybe rotate the food and bottled water out. A battery-operated or hand-cranked radio, something similar to like this. We recently showed this to some of our younger staff, and they were very, very amused by this because they're like, oh, this is great. I can actually use it. Having this helps this power supply. They make them now where they can actually charge your cell phone as well. They're hand-crank battery chargers that you can use. There's a lot of different things out there. If you go to any of the search engines and type in emergency preparedness, and they range in varying different prices. I think that one, when I purchased it, was like $24. Yeah, Amazon. You can get them in Walmart sometimes. AARP. Yeah, there's a number of different places that you can get them. You want to make sure you have a flashlight with batteries that work.
$18.90 on Amazon with a phone charger jack in it.
That being said, we do not endorse any one product.
No, we don't.
Emergency blankets. These are usually 99-cent at any camping store or on Amazon. These foil blankets are very loud and crinkly, but they will keep you very, very warm. They're small. You can stick them in your pocket. I've used these in emergency situations. They're really, really good. You can get them from a camping store. If you type in emergency blanket on Amazon, you can find them right there. A pair of good work gloves. Don't say, I'll just use my gardening gloves. Have a separate pair just dedicated for your emergency kit. A rain poncho. This can be used for 1,000 different reasons, from covering a window that's leaking to keeping you dry, going out to the store to try to get food. Most of this stuff can be used for multi-reasons. A multi-tool, like this is a shovel/saw. This only costs $15, $20. People say, well, when would I need it? I don't think I can use it. Well, if your car is stuck in snow and you just need to shovel a little bit of salt or dirt over it, that's not going to be a huge lift. And we do have a list of all this stuff over there, so don't worry about this. In this bag, the most important thing in the world to have extra of, and some of us learned this during COVID, toilet paper. Always make sure you have at least 1 or 2 rolls of toilet paper. Band-Aids, little first aid kits, toilet spoons, forks, knives. The one thing I don't see here that I usually have is something that the younger generation doesn't know how to use, is a can opener. Because there are cans that don't have the peel back. Those are really, really important. Games, card games. A deck of cards can save a lot of people's mental health during a disaster. Especially sitting there in the dark with a flashlight. A good game of bingo or pinochle can really save lives. If you have medication, if you know hurricane's coming, contact your pharmacy and say, hey, can I get like a few extra days worth of my medication because I know a hurricane's coming, and about the time the hurricane hits is when I usually renew my prescription. So make sure you have enough of medication to last you at least a week. If you know people that are on home oxygen, their oxygen company will drop off regular O2 bottles where if the machine doesn't work, they can go on their O2 bottles. Make sure they know how to use it. During Hurricane Sandy, we went to 22 different homes where the power is out, their oxygen machine didn't work. They had the oxygen bottles, but they didn't know how to use the oxygen. They didn't have to be transported to the hospital. They were fine. I just need my oxygen. We went there. We helped them out. It was no problem. Little things like that. Local maps. A cell phone with a charger. If you have a backup battery, that also is extremely helpful. Moist towelettes, baby wipes are invaluable, especially if you have a water emergency and it's been like 2 or 3 days since anybody's taken a real bath or shower. That will also help everybody get along a lot better when you're cleaner. Make a plan. If a disaster happens, what are you going to do? Where are you going to go if the place you live is no longer livable? Does your apartment complex have a contract with a hotel or something in case a fire happens? The whole purpose of this program is to start the conversation. When you go home, talk to your family, talk to your neighbors. Would your neighbors be willing to take you in case something does happen? Get involved. There's the citizenscorp.gov. You can get more information there. You can contact Montclair Office of Emergency Management. I am a deputy in the Montclair OEM. Take a first aid, CPR, or stop the bleed class. All of these are offered by the Montclair Ambulance Unit. Some are free. Some, unfortunately, we have to bill for just to cover the cost of the instructor and the cards. There are community emergency response teams in some communities. Montclair does not have one currently, but I know we've been looking into it. These are all different ways you can get involved. If you're in a part of a complex, 340 Orange Road, First Montclair House, your regular apartment building, and you go to a tenants meeting, have you ever had this conversation? What do you do during a disaster? Like, what happens if the generator stops working, or if the elevator stopped working and people need to get doctor's appointments? One of the things that really helped a lot of people during Hurricane Sandy was neighbors pulling together and helping neighbors. And doing that takes a lot of pressure off the emergency responders who are trying to respond to more of the life-threatening emergencies. Not saying that your emergency isn't important, just it may not be as a higher priority. Does that make sense? We will email you most of these links as long as you've done the sign-in sheet. Any questions? It's 1 gallon of water per person per day. So you're going to have a minimum of 3 days according to FEMA. I personally have, right now I think I have like 6 gallons in the back of my closet, which my wife really doesn't like because I'm taking up her space. By the 6th day, emergency responders should have checked on you. By day 3 of Hurricane Sandy, every apartment building, every senior housing complex, the Montclair Ambulance Unit and OEM has visited there to check on the residents, checked on the management to make sure they're checking on the residents and everything else. I am also going to introduce you to Jonathan Pryor, who is our Training and Outreach Education Coordinator.
Good morning, guys. Or at this point, almost good afternoon. Why don't we give Michael Craig here a big round of applause?
I apologize. I have another appointment I have to keep. Otherwise, I would love to stay around and dance with you, maybe do cha-cha. But, and the good part about Jonathan is he's going to give you what all the neat giveaways and different handouts that we have for you and answer any questions. You good?
I'm good. Thank you, Chief. Okay. Let's continue on with the questions. Anyone else have any questions regarding all this wonderful information that Deputy Chief Craig went over today? No question is a bad question. I know when it comes to emergencies, you don't necessarily think right away about what could go wrong. So I'll stay around for a bit. Yes. So as Michael was saying, an emergency bag is, very important. I'm only 25 years young, and this is something I've kept in my car and in my bedroom since I was 18. Having an emergency bag, being prepared, is so very important. I come from a very large family. I'm one of 15 kids. So can you imagine preparing for that? So, being one of the younger kids, having to go tell your older siblings, hey, you might want to make a bag for your apartment, especially living in the city. They thought I was crazy. And then what we went through over the last 3.5, 4 years, they realized how important that was. So being prepared for these emergencies at the end of the day is for your safety. And as Michael was saying, sometimes it does take us a moment to come help you, whether it's just making sure your oxygen tank is ready to go or you have enough water. Because at the end of the day, we are still responding to medical emergencies, fire emergencies, and police emergencies. And we'll backtrack down depending on priority levels. Any other questions? Oh, now I feel, yes. So on this table, as you guys get ready to, leave or whatever's next on your agenda for the day, please take a handout. We have a file for life there. If none of you have ever filled that out, a file of life or a vial of life is a very important document. How many of you guys know what medications you're on daily, off the top of your head, or have it stored in your phone? How many of you guys have those handwritten somewhere? Okay. So when it comes to a true emergency like this and it's not handwritten down and we come to take you to the hospital, especially after 3 days of no power and no cell phone coverage, that's an important document for me and my providers to see so we can know what you're on and know how to treat you better. So that document there not only takes down your medications, but your primary doctor, your hospital of choice, and not necessarily in a natural disaster, but in an everyday medical emergency. If for some reason you were found unconscious or unresponsive and no one else is home, that document's going to tell us a lot about you. So you can take that out, unfold it, and fill it out. I'm going to pass this lovely microphone off to my friend here. There you go.
That was a perfect segue. I couldn't have planned this better. My name is Carol Schlein. I'm on the board of Montclair Gateway to Aging in Place. And as both of the speakers mentioned, there are all sorts of resources for emergency alerts, for tracking your medications. And, sorry, okay, is that better? And one of the things that we're seeing as a change in technology and change in generation is my mom and that generation wore those like alert necklaces and bracelets to avoid falls. Today, those are being replaced by smart watches. So the current Apple iWatch has the ability to store your medications, to give you alerts, to do a lot of these emergency functions. And Gateway just received a grant from AARP and Partners for Health, and we've purchased 15 watches, and we're looking for 30 volunteers at 3 different locations to help us evaluate how seniors are receiving these messages, how we can improve this process, and getting people more comfortable with the technology. So if you're interested in participating, it's going to be primarily in October and November, but we'll also be doing ongoing things into next year. Our board is sitting in the back here. We have flyers. There's a question. Did you have a question? Okay. So if you're interested, please check with one of us. Thank you.
So that's all very important. I promise you, I'd say about at least once or twice a day, we go for those life alert activations. So having one of those is super important. With that, though, if you leave your residence, just so you are aware with a life alert, and you accidentally hit it at a hair appointment, at a dentist appointment, we will show up to your residence and we'll make sure you're okay. So even if you're not home and you press it, sometimes it still does activate and we still show up. That is our job. We show up 110% of the time. And when it's not the Montclair Ambulance Unit, it's one of our mutual aid partners, whether it's Glen Ridge Rescue, Verona Rescue, Montclair State EMS, one of our regional partners will come and check on you. That's why having those devices and those alert systems are so very important to us. As I was saying, we have other documentation there. We have checklists for first aid kits and go bags, along with other checklists for important things, like what important documents you should be keeping in a safe, what important documents you should be ready to leave with in the event you have to leave your residence. There's some national preparedness guides and little pocket checklists to keep in your pocketbook, your car, your wallet, so you know all your emergency information. As of that, I'm going to finish up our presentation. I want to thank you guys for taking the time out of your day for being here. It's super important to me, it's super important to our department, and more importantly, it's important for you guys to know. So thank you once again for coming out, and thank you guys for your support.